Are you one of those people who feels that they're overworked and underpaid? Every Monday morning, do you get that sinking feeling that, oh my God, I have to go back to that awful place, to that awful job, which I hate so much? Do you feel anxious, feel that knot in your stomach when you see your boss approaching your desk? Because your boss is always trying to humiliate you, scare you into working more and more. Well, here is the good news, the silver lining in this rather gloomy picture, if one could say that. The silver lining is that you're not alone. A majority of Indian white-collar professionals feel this way now. I'm going to begin with a few numbers, what survey data tells us. First, the question of work hours. The International Labour Organization, ILO, says that Indians are among the most overworked people in the world. 51% of Indian workers work more than 49 hours a week, which is what the ILO considers to be more than what anyone should have to work. We have the dubious distinction of being number 2 in the world overworked population ranking. Only Bhutan ranks above us. Survey data number 2 on being underpaid. The latest survey by the jobs portal Found It, which used to be called Monster earlier, found that 47% of Indian professionals are unhappy with their salaries and the pay hikes they've been getting. Data point number 3 on whether Indian middle class white collar workers feel inspired to go to work. Do they get job satisfaction from what they're doing? A study done by the Manpower Group in 2024 says 1 in 3 professionals in India are dissatisfied with their jobs. And that's a very high number if you want your team to be extra productive in this super competitive world that we live in. ADP's study for 2025 reveals an even more dismal picture. Only 19% or 1 in 5 feel engaged with their work. And this is a sharp decline from last year when the employee engagement rate in India was 24%. And what is even more worrying, by the way, is that India is the only large economy where employee engagement has fallen. Everywhere else, according to ADP's survey, people's level of engagement has actually increased. Now, why is that? Of course, being overworked and feeling underpaid is always going to cause burnout and reduce employee engagement. But a bigger reason is probably workplace toxicity, the feeling of being humiliated at work. The survey data here is simply shocking, and I'm going to hold that number for now and come back to it later. And before I go on, here's an appeal from us. The reason why the Quint is able to focus on news and issues that matter to you is also because of you, especially those of you who are our members, part of the wider Quint family. Now, we all know newsrooms can only speak the truth on behalf of the people if they are independent. And running independent newsrooms costs money. That is where you can contribute by becoming members. Scan the QR code that is on your screen right now, the one that you see, and choose one of the membership plans that you'll get to. Your help will keep us going, and we promise that we will use every paise to speak truth to power. Okay, let us come back and take a closer look at each of the points I mentioned one by one. Are Indian professionals overworked? Now, as I told you, the ILO says that more than half of India's workforce works more than 49 hours of work, which by ILO standards amounts to being overworked. In fact, in the USA, where working excessively hard is considered to be the norm, only 12% of the workforce works more than 49 hours a week. In the UK, that number is even lower, just 9%. Now, compare that to our 51%. You are probably watching this and smirking and saying, what is 49 hours? I worked 60 hours a week, and you won't be wrong. In fact, ILO's numbers are likely to be a big understatement when it comes to white-collar workers in India. So it is an average of all kinds of employees, including blue-collar workers, who are governed by stricter labor laws. White-collar professions like you and me have no such legal protection. In fact, other surveys done recently show that Indian professionals work between 49 to 51 hours on an average. In some industries, it is as high as 70 hours a week. In consulting, it can go up to 120 hours a week. So again, if you feel that you have much longer work hours than what the ILO stipulates, you are not alone. You're part of the majority of white-collar workers in India. And as I said, many would be clocking in 70 hours, some clocking in 90 hours a week. White-collar workers in India work some of the longest hours in the world, and it's almost considered to be okay to be overworked. What is worse is that we ourselves have internalized this. If you have a presentation to do tomorrow, we are not supposed to be working on that presentation while we are in office. We are expected to do that burning the midnight oil back at home. And this is not only in corporate space, mind you, it is true even if your white collar job is teaching in a school. Teachers are expected to prepare for their classes at home. It's not counted as part of their work hours. School teachers, for instance, are expected to prepare their lectures, check homework, grade exam papers, all of this after school hours. They not only put in the work hours in school, but have to put in another 3 to 4 hours of work once they go back home just to keep up with the teaching related tasks. So overwork has become a norm across the world for white collar employees in India. And it is not as if you are left alone at peace to do your work at home. A survey by a global hiring firm called Indeed found that 88% of Indian professionals are regularly interrupted by their bosses after work hours. 85% said that they are expected to work on their off days, when they are on vacation, and even when they are on medical leave. And they can't afford to ignore it. 79% of employees said they fear retribution if they don't work on their weekly offs. They feel ignoring work-related communication when they're out of office will affect their professional reputation. They will be passed over when it is time for promotions. They won't get good raises, or they might just even be sad. No wonder we, the middle class, are pushed to put in crazy hours at the expense of our personal lives and family time. But you know what? If you're compensated financially for hard work, most of us would be willing to do it. For instance, I personally worked very long hours for much of my career, going way beyond what my bosses expected of me, but I got paid handsomely for it. So I had absolutely no reason to complain. But even that is not happening any longer. As I mentioned earlier, the latest survey by the jobs portal Foundit, done in March-April this year, 2025, found that 47% of professionals are unhappy with their salaries, especially the pay hikes that they've been getting. The level of dissatisfaction is the highest amongst entry-level employees, those who have worked from they've just joined or worked up to 3 years. And as you go up the experience ladder, people start accepting that this is what they will get. Another survey, the Deal Gen Z Salary Satisfaction Survey, came up with broadly similar numbers. It found that 41% of Gen Z employees are unhappy about their pay. 2/3 of them say that the salary hikes don't keep pace with rising prices. By the way, they're not asking for extra pay. They're just saying pay us salaries that match inflation. In fact, the Foundit survey that I mentioned earlier says that 59% of white-collar professionals have had very low salary hikes in the past 3 years. What is worse is that another 13% had no pay hike at all. So 72% of the professionals surveyed either had no salary increase or very meager raises since 2022. And mind you, we have seen very high inflation during this period, at least of the things that the middle class spends on. So there's a sense of being overworked and a sense of being underpaid for the work you do, or that a sense that your salary hasn't kept up with inflation. So the middle class is seeing its purchasing power shrink and its standards of living decline instead of what it expected, improving. These are the two key reasons why middle class professionals in India feel disengaged from their work. They don't feel the urge to do better, to innovate, to build something new. But there is a bigger reason for feeling dissatisfied with one's work situation, and that is the excessive levels of workplace toxicity in India. A report by Amaha Health quotes a 2024 survey by Foundit that says a whopping 68% of workers in India feel that their workplace is toxic, and 43% blame their immediate bosses for it. And why do these bosses and team leaders do this? They do it because they face the same level of toxicity from their bosses. It trickles down from the top. And how does this toxicity manifest itself? Employees are humiliated by their immediate bosses, made to feel scared about their jobs, that their promotions will be held up, or they might even be sacked. There are constant snide remarks on their work. Bosses blatantly steal credit to show to their superiors how hard they are working. And this overall authoritarian environment that is created allows bosses to openly play favorites with their people. 7 out of 10 white-collar employees face this kind of toxicity every single day. If that is how you are treated in your workplace, why would you put in that extra effort to innovate for your employer? Why would you want to build something new? And you know what? Workplace toxicity always spills over into one's personal space and it ends up destroying relationships. You feel tense and anxious all the time. You feel that you're sacrificing your self-respect to earn money for your family, for your spouse and kids. And you end up taking it out on them by being irritable, angry, cold all the time, and unreasonable. No wonder 60% of professionals in India say they face significant stress at work, and a whopping 81% of managers fear that they will lose their job in the next 6 months. Now, I can guarantee that some of you watching this video right now are experiencing this in your own lives at the present moment. So why has this happened to India's white-collar workers who constitute India's middle class? Why are they faced with a situation where they are overworked, underpaid, and have to accept toxic bosses? Well, the reason for this is an overall economic slowdown, which our GDP numbers don't reveal or capture. If we look at the numbers compiled by the Center for Monitoring India's Economy, CMIE, of the top 5,400 odd companies in the country, which regularly publish their financial data, then we will see the true picture emerge. In the past 2 years, the net sales of these top companies has increased at an annual rate of just 6.2%. If you adjust for average inflation, combining retail and wholesale prices, then the real growth in sales has been a measly 3% per year. Yet, their net profits have risen at an annual rate of 21.4%. The only way that was possible to achieve was by cutting costs. And the easiest way to do that is to reduce the wage and salary bill and extract more out of your employees. In other words, overwork and underpay them. So while profits rose by more than 21% per year, wages and salaries went up by just 8.7%. And most of that increase would have been captured by those at the top, the so-called C-suite employees, CEOs, COOs, CFOs, and so on, who get massive salaries. The average white-collar worker's pay rise would have barely crossed retail inflation, if at all. So this is what India's middle-class professionals are facing right now. Long work hours, including being expected to work at home, on off days and during vacations, low salary hikes that don't keep up with the rising costs of what we consume, and toxic workspaces which kill our will to innovate. If you feel this is happening to you, you might take some comfort, cold comfort, from the fact that you're not alone. And also hope that our corporates wake up and realize that if this continues for a while, India will be left far behind in the innovation race that is going across the world. Before I go, a reminder, if you want more of this kind of data-driven videos, become a member of the Quint. It is very easy. Just scan the QR code on your screen, choose a plan and support us. Help us to keep the media independent.